from that perspective, since the future hasn't happened yet, and most of us don't have precognition happening all the time, that means that what we're suffering is the past. So what I want to ask you is, when you consider the suffering that may have existed in your past, or any individual considers that, how does this gene key, how does it function? How can we use this experience of being so connected to our own experience of the past to know how it felt, to know what happened to us, to know what somebody else meant to do to us in the moment? How do we use this to create something that feels better in our present? How do we get right with the past?
With the 13, I feel that it's more than just what we have experienced. I do believe that it goes back to how Richard Rudd speaks about the core wound, and how we know that our DNA is coding for everything that ever happened. And we happen to be the accumulation on the edge of evolution, which is kind of cool. And somehow I feel like that perspective is actually helping us. I know that I've been in temple arts trainings, and I've felt like the womb of all the women. And I can also recall having been in some of those trainings that are more sexual of nature, where the younger women were the ones that were felt most aggravated. You could be in a room in a ritual, and you can hear this like very high pitch just cut through the room, and these are the youngest women that seem to carry most pain. And that means that what we can tap into and what we can feel, it's not just us, it's something deeper. And the more refined the 13 becomes, I actually feel like in the new generations, the more we can feel. And somehow through being able to live out that pain at a very young age, they can actually free themselves from it. And as somebody who's receiving that cutting scream, there is also something that happens and catalyzes in us, where we in one way can choose to collapse with it, or we can choose to wake up with it. And I know that this, for some people, it can seem like this is like too much in a way what I'm saying, but this is what I've felt and experienced on my skin. So I believe that the 13 somehow always has a choice. And if we look at the third line, the key word there from the line companion is pessimism. But if we look at the sixth line, the whole process, it is optimism. So for me, what I have come to in those experiences, it is to say, okay, I get to do this when I'm 35, but there is somebody who's 19 who was scholarship into this program because her aunt was doing this work for 35 years already. Like, there is a beauty when we can come together in generations and see the work that can be done today much earlier. So there are also positive things with the fact that things are more accessible, that the world is more globalized, that some of these things that have to do with wounding and even deeper, like sexual wounding, it's not so taboo anymore. So daring to go there and dare to recall that whatever you keep and carry in your DNA, it's not only yours, and you're doing the work of generations and generations before. And somehow in that weave, we all have our place. So there's also an acceptance of what is it that I remember? What is it that I have been through? What is it that I carry? What is it, my lineage? And I believe it's actually more destabilizing sometimes. Both. I mean, you can get stuck when you know what happened to you, and you get stuck with that thing, and then you use that as an excuse forever to stay in a low frequency because that thing happened to you. So that's destabilizing in one way. And the other thing that's destabilizing is that when you don't know, you have so much pain inside. And you and I have been speaking about existential despair. You can feel the existential despair. You don't know where it comes from. And I read a book recently. It didn't start with you. That really goes back into the 3 generations or a little bit before you, where you still can actually kind of be a little bit of a detective and know what happened to to those few generations before you and see that so many emotional, psychological problems that are there come in the same age that like that father's brother or grandfather's, like there is something there that happened, and you're gonna your nervous system and your emotional body is doing the same, because we're here to remember. And that's what the 33 is, which is the harmonic age of the 13. We're here to remember, and through remembering all of it, that's how we can free ourselves. So that for me that's the beauty of this key. And there's nothing to do to feel a little better more than acceptance of everything that's ever happened, and allow that to work through us.
Yeah, to me, what you're saying really just brings up to me what my experience of deep listening truly is. It's a form of receiving that offers nothing in response.